Hello, everyone. I know we have people from Canada, from New Zealand, from Brussels, from Southern California, from San Diego. We truly are a global community, which I really, really love. And hello from New Jersey. Hello to everybody that is here and taking the time to be here today. My next thing I was going to say is just for you to quickly check to mute yourself. You should be muted upon entry. Not because I don't love you, but it's hard to keep track of 3 pages of everyone if we're off mute. So just take a quick second to check that you are muted and know that we will have plenty of time for you to unmute and ask questions as we go. But it's just easier, as you all know from being on Zooms, if we're just muted to start. So first off, I think, okay, we just entered, Somerville. Hi, Amanda. Amanda, we've talked about this. I used to live in Somerville. I lived in Cambridge for almost 3 years. So I know all about those Boston winters. I know what it's like to trudge through Harvard Yard with snow up to my knees and being like, oh, I guess we still have school today. So I understand. And hi, Brian, Pasadena. This is awesome. I'm so glad that everyone is here. Thank you so much for being here. So first off, I want to just thank you so much for a few things. Number one, I want to thank you so much for being part of the Copy Chat, whether this was your first season, or this was your 3rd season, or your 5th season. I can't believe we've been doing it for 5 seasons in 2 years. But thank you so much for being a part of it and for, returning. Like I said, if this has been, your 3rd or your 5th season. And as you've heard me say, I know that there's so many things on the internet that are telling you to do this, be this, buy that. So I don't take it lightly that you decided to take your time to tune in last week and listen in and say that I want to get better with my copy and my messaging. I know that this is, as I call it, like one of the business basic needs. And I just appreciate you participating and showing up on the pop-up lives and the comments. And I just got done basically about an hour and a half in my email, just responding to all of the messages that we've had, which is really, really amazing. So I want to thank you for that, because we couldn't keep doing this many seasons if people weren't interested in showing up in the way that you are. So thank you for that. Number two, I want to thank you for supporting Soulfire Farm and being here, and grabbing the kit. Right. So not only do you get the lifetime access to the interviews and you get access to this bonus class and the Email Connect Convert workbook, but you also helped us raise, and I want to look down at my numbers of them, right? We raised $13,563.71. So we smashed that $10,000 goal. And I could not do it without you, whether you're here now or you're watching this recording in the future. There's no way that could have happened. And I just want to thank you so much for being a part of that. And I know that this is going to hugely impact all of the beautiful work that Soulfire Farm is doing. And again, I just want to remind you, Soulfire Farm is an organization that is committed to ending racism and injustice in our food system. And so what does that look like? It looks like it looks like this. They are giving land back to Black and brown growers with farmer training. They are providing workshops for urban youth. They also, through their initiative, which is called Soulfire Farm in the City, provide farmers markets and also do doorstep harvest delivery for food insecure households. And it is their goal to end food apartheid and bring all of our communities together through access to that ability to grow our own food and create and feed our communities. It's a really, really powerful organization. I encourage you to check them out on Instagram. They have an incredible Instagram. Their website is super transparent. You will see where all of their money goes, all of the initiatives that they're doing. And I'm just really, really excited to be able to write them a virtual check for $13,000, $13,563, and that's 71 cents. I'm going to have to probably round it up a little bit, but we'll make sure that 71 cents is there as well. So I want to thank you so much for that and for being here. So in honor of that today, I am really, really excited to just be here on this bonus class. I know a lot of you submitted questions and I have notes. So if you see me looking down, I have notes. I have things I want to share with you. So there's lots of stuff for us to kind of get through. So the first thing, I'll just give you the agenda, is the first thing I want to do is I noticed some themes in the questions that I received. So I want to start off with just giving a little bit of like teaching and tips based on some common things that I saw. Then I want to go through and I've starred some questions that I definitely want to answer because I know that for the whole group, it's going to be great. And then we'll see where we are after that. And of course, I want to leave time if there's questions that come up in real time here. We'll make sure that those questions get answered. So you are what's on my docket today. So this is great. After this, I'm going to go to my favorite restaurant at 5 o'clock with my husband so that we can have outdoor dining 6 feet away from people and leave before, like, you know, people that really go out to dinner at the right time come. So that's what I'm doing today. So I'm here with you to just answer any questions and be there. And again, it's just so exciting to see where everyone is listening in from. This is so great. And know, because you have lifetime access to the interviews, anything that I mentioned today, obviously you can go back and listen to any of these interviews again and again. We have people who are going back and listening and using their kits all the time from season 1, which is amazing. Hi, Madison, Wisconsin. Hi, Kelly. Okay, so some of the overall themes that I was feeling in the questions were the following, and let me know if in the comments you're like, yes, this is true. So one of the things that I was really feeling from the things that I was seeing in the questionnaire where we asked you to send in these 2 questions were the following things. Was, how do I add more personality to my copy? How do I tell stories in a way that people were saying, how do I tell stories like you, Marisa, but also like me? We got that a lot in there as well. And how do I craft like signature stories? So it's this idea of like, how do I show up as myself in my copy? How do I tell more stories? And how do I craft like signature stories? So does that feel for anybody like resonate with you? Like, yes, I have that question and I want to know more about that. You can give me like a yes in the comments. Yes. Hi, Sheila. Awesome. The signature stories for sure. Awesome. Yep. Yes. Okay, great. So we're going to start with a little just kind of training into that. So if there are questions that come up on this, I'd love for you just to jot them down on a piece of paper or whatever you have with you. So we'll take some time after this just to see what might come up from that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share my screen with you. This is not fancy. It's in a Google Doc. I'm not fancy. Slides stress me out, so I don't do them. But I love to make things in a Google Doc with GIFs and like funny pictures. So that's what I do. And I encourage you to do what you want to do for yourself as well. So can everyone see my screen? Will you just give me a head nod? Sheila, Brian, okay, I see a few people. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about like 3 steps. Actually, there's more than 3 steps, but 3 steps to kind of turn your boring copy into a personality-filled selling machine, right? So first, I just want to go back just 1 second. So last year, not true, November of 2019, which is like right before 2020 hit, I did a photo shoot for my business. And I get done with the photo shoot. It was like a crisp November morning in Atlanta where you can just start to feel like it, you know, the sun isn't beating on you anymore. You might need a little jacket, but by the time like 11 o'clock comes, it's back to being hot again. So we get in the car after like sweating, being cold, all this. And I'm like, oh, the photo shoot's done. And I look over at my husband and he goes, yeah, I knew that was going to be a shit show the moment it started. And I was like, yeah, I know. Why was it a shit show? And my husband goes, because you have a degree from Harvard University in acting, and you were literally acting like you were Pinocchio, like a wooden boy, like you didn't know where to put your hands. Like if she didn't tell you what to do, it's like you had not a creative bone in your body. And I'm like, I know. And the thing was I was working with a new photographer. And when she kind of showed up, she was very kind of shy in the way that she was acting. So I don't know if you've ever felt like this. You can tell me in the comments. I didn't want to step on her toes. I didn't want to be like, oh, I know the answers of what to do. But because she wasn't kind of matching my energy, I kind of like shrunk. And so I ended up with kind of, for the lack of a better word, some basic bitch pictures where I was like me holding a coffee cup and me doing this and like the typical way. And it wasn't actually reflective of me and my personality. And what I realized in this moment is this may be how I think we all sometimes can feel online, is not knowing how much of ourselves to put out there. We don't want people to react in a certain way to us. So we might shrink, and let me know if this is you. So we kind of just go along with what everyone else is doing. And we end up feeling like we're the same, whether it's in how our pictures are or how our copy is, all of it, right? So I want to show you of how I really think that you can take these steps to turn yourself into the kind of this personality filled selling machine, and what that looks like for you and where you can take it into the different areas of of your business. And I'm seeing that like everyone's like, oh my God, that's me. Okay, awesome, Emily. I'm glad that this is resonating because that was me that day. And I think it's important for people to understand that we all have this at any stage, right? So let's talk about this. So if you can wave this kind of magic wand over your copy, there are elements that it should include. Captivating storytelling, sounding like yourself, and segueing with ease. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is this power of storytelling. So step number one is that storytelling is the new storytelling. Wink, wink. I just told you a story to start this off, right? So that story is real, but it's also a story to start this off, right? Because now it's a way that I can engage you in a way that feels relatable without me just starting like, let me get on my soapbox and start teaching you, right? So storytelling is the new storytelling, right? It is our oldest form of communication. In the Chauvet caves back 30,000 plus years ago, storytelling was how people were communicating. The thing that happens with storytelling very often, and you can tell me if this is true, is that online we are so inundated with all these marketing tricks and all these marketing things that we're supposed to be doing. But storytelling is a creative act. So it requires you to kind of take off your marketing hat and to put on yourself as a creative being. Many of us have a creative background. I'm always surprised by how many entrepreneurs and people that I meet that have a creative background. So we have this ability to do this, but sometimes we get caught up because we want it to be right, or we're still learning, like thinking in these marketing tricks. And I really want you to think as a creative person here today. So one of the questions, and it started to come up in the questionnaire, was, Marisa, how do I know which stories I should tell? So let me just say something about this really quick before we go on. We'll just like go above this GIF because the guy keeps popping out and then it keeps distracting me. Like the GIF is fine at first, but then I'm like, stop popping out of the cave because like then I can't like concentrate. So this is very important. So if you have a piece of paper, you can jot this down for yourself. It's very important to have boundaries in your business of knowing what are the things that you want to share and what are the things that you don't want to share. I think that the problem is that we think it has to be all or nothing. You have to be like crying on Instagram, or you're like, sending the stuffy, like corporate kind of emails, right? No offense to the corporate world, but you get what I'm saying. And that is actually not true. That there is this beautiful middle ground where you can share what you feel comfortable with and things that you don't. For some people, that might be like, I'm great. I don't mind talking about my marriage or my kids, but for whatever reason, I want to keep like my workouts, like my Peloton, I'm pointing this way because my Peloton is right here, to myself. Some people could be the opposite, be like, I don't mind sharing about my wacky trips to Target or, that I love to paint, but my relationship or my relationship with my mother or whatever that is off limits. And there is no standard here. There is no like, this is the answer. And I think this is what trips people up. But I think if you can listen inside of like your body and what's right for you, you'll be able to know. And I actually would love for you to jot that down because chances are we know. Like, what are the things that are like, yes, I don't mind sharing this, but what are one or two things that, I want to keep private? I think the other thing about this is that we tend to jump to, well, if I don't have that Elizabeth Gilbert crying on the bathroom floor at the beginning of Eat, Pray, Love, remember in Eat, Pray, Love, then if I don't have this rags to riches story or this, whatever, I was sad and then happy story, then I don't have anything to share. Has that ever felt like you? You can just like raise your hand, like your actual hand, right? You're like, well, what do I have to share, right? But actually what makes us relatable to our audience, and I've been teaching this for years, so trust me on this, what really resonates with people are what we call these slice of life moments. So when I was an actor, when we would present a scene on stage, so let's say I was assigned Maggie in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which by the way I was. And before I could even do the scene, I had to come into class like a week before and give these slice of life moments, we call them, in Maggie's life. So I had to show what would Maggie be like brushing her hair in the morning? What was Maggie like when she how did she conduct herself like at the grocery store? Like outside of her life with Brick in the play, what was she like? And so that's where this term slice of life moments come up. So when we start to think about stories, I want you to start to say, hey, you might have that Elizabeth Gilbert story and like, okay, keep that. We're going to talk about signature stories in a little bit. But I also want you to start thinking about these slice of life moments. So there's a few ways to think about these slice of life moments. Number one is to just start giving yourself some prompts, right? Even if you like go to Barnes and Noble, you can usually find in the discount section, there's like these prompt books where it's like to help you journal. And there's the best questions hidden inside here. So I'm going to give you some examples. Now, when you start to answer these questions for yourself, you don't need to know the story that it's going to lead to. I already know people are like, okay, well, what's the point? Where does it lead to next? It's just to start to get your kind of creative juices flowing of what stories you might have inside of you. So here's some slice of life prompts you can think about. And I'm going to give you an example of something that registered for me. So what was your favorite candy as a kid, right? Who was your first childhood crush? What's a subject you hated in school? You know, what's the last interaction you had at a supermarket? Likely it might be a weird one because, you know, we're all in masks or whatever. And you can just run yourself through this. Take a look at the rest of this list. Things you're scared of, last argument you had via text. These are just some different kinds of prompts. I'm going to give you an example of this. So when I first answered the prompt of what was my favorite candy as a kid, I just wrote down lemon heads. And then I was like, wait a second, lemon heads. Like, oh my God, that's right. My brother and I we were like the last generation of penny candy. We would like go to this little penny candy place that was on Court Street in Syracuse, Court and Carbon. And we would like take all the change we could find. And my brother like loved sugar daddies, which is really funny now knowing my brother as an adult. And I like loved lemon heads, and we would like just stuff. I remember I had like a starter jacket, you know, those starter jackets in the 90s. And I would like stuff my starter jacket with candy. And it got me thinking about my relationship with my brother. And that turned into something that I eventually used or like pocketed as this could be a possible story that I could tell. Being this like last generation of penny candy and like this moment with my brother. But at the time I was just filling it out just to kind of fill that out for myself. So I encourage you to think about this, to think about like, what are some prompts? What are some stories, these slice of life moments that you already have, and just store them somewhere. It could be a Google Doc. It could be, I store mine in the notes on my phone. So everywhere that I am, my husband knows if it comes to me, I'm like, stop for a second. And I just go to the notes in my phone and I'll literally write penny candy, Sean, 1994. And then I'll be like, at some point I'll remember this. Or I'll be watching something and I'm like, ooh, this could be a thing. Or like 2 weeks ago, I came up with this idea about Billy Joel. So I just popped into my thing and I was like, the Billy Joel principle. Doesn't mean I'm going to write about it right now. When it's ready for the story to be revealed, it will. But I just keep track of them so I don't forget. So I just want to see, does that resonate? Can you just give me like a yes in the comments? Regal Sours. Oh, Melissa. These are great. Okay, good. I'm so glad. I think that this is important. Okay, great. Awesome. The second step to this is to know your pop culture. So here's something else I noticed in the questions. People were like, well, Marisa, someone said to me, and I don't know if you're here, but I love that you're this honest. You're like, I don't know anything about Real Housewives. I don't even watch TV. And it's like, great. When I say pop culture, I'm talking about the things that like, it doesn't have to even be like recent pop culture. I'm going to give you an example of this. What I mean by this is the things that are happening in the world around you, or maybe from a few years ago, things that you love. If it's not TV, it could be books. It could be music, it could be painting, it could be knitting, it could be anything, right? It could be anything that it is for you. The reason why I think that this is so important is that very often you're taught in whatever business course or whatever thing that you've done, business mentorship, to like everything is about your ideal client. Everything is about your ideal client, which it needs to be. We need to know their pain points and the benefits and all that. But to start from that place, I think can be a little bit of like shooting yourself in the foot. And I mean this because people are really making purchasing decisions, and if they feel like, if they can feel like they can relate to you, there's a connection between you. So if you're worried about what your ideal client reads or the coffee they drink or whatever, I'm not really concerned about that. I want to know what coffee you drink. I want to know what kind of books you read. I want to know about you. And then you can tell me how you're going to help me with the benefits and understanding my pain points. But even if I don't read the same, magazine as you, the idea that you have a personality, you've taken a stand on who you are, is going to be way more attractive to me than you trying to fit yourself into my world. So in order to do this, you want to make a little pop culture list for yourself. So before I give you like my list here, which you can see, I wrote for a client a few years ago who was like, I don't know anything recent pop culture. I'm like, that's okay. What do you love? And she shared with me, okay, well, I really like love the Karate Kid. I loved the Karate Kid. I'm like, okay, well, we can write about that for sure. So I got to write an entire email that was about the Karate Kid. How fun is that? Right? I've had other clients who'd be like, oh, I don't really watch TV, Marisa, but I've read every Alice Hoffman book. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, and Alice Hoffman wrote Practical Magic, like all the witchy stuff. I'm like, oh, this is great. This could be in your copy. So the list matters like for you and what it is. My list usually tends to be this like TV and music focus because that's been my world. That's where I've come from. But your list might be different. And it's okay if it's, you know, if you were like, oh my God, I was obsessed with the Brady Bunch. Great. Let's use the Brady Bunch maybe in a story sometime, right? Or I was obsessed with, you know, whatever it might be. I grew up like me every Sunday night. I watched In Living Color growing up. And it's my dream. Like the number one thing I'm sad about when people ask me, what did you know, you're supposed to say as a woman, like, I wish I could be president of the United States. And really, my number one regret is that I'll never get a chance to say, ladies and gentlemen, Keenan Ivory Waynes, that like I was never a fly girl. Okay. Like that's my number one regret in this world. So maybe that's an email, which isn't like recent pop culture, but it is my world and will attract the right people to me. Right. So my list is I'm obsessed with Queer Eye. I really, really love rap music. I feel like it's some of the best poetry and a way to learn about someone's experience. And so I love like dissecting like rap lyrics. Masterclass, the thing that you can buy online that you see. I've watched so many. I love them. My favorite is the Ron Finley one on planting a revolution. I love Christmas movies. If you're on my email list, you know I send a lot of emails about movies, Halloween movies, Christmas movies. Of course, I love The Real Housewives. I love Toni Braxton. There's a reason that my Instagram is at mtony with an I. Musicals, obviously. Jason Isbell is my favorite singer. I love Nintendo. And for some reason, I love Masterclass so much, I wrote it twice. But that's my list, right? So if I'm ever looking for stories or where they are, now I have my prompts that I have stored. I have recent things like my pop culture. So there's ways that I can draw forth my personality. But I wanted to talk about that because in the questionnaire that was filled out, a lot of people were like, I don't have this like, you know, modern pop culture, and it doesn't need to be that. So if you think about that, I'd love for you to type in the comments, what's an example from your list? There's no wrong answers here. So like, what's an example in your list? I just want to see. Oh, Hamilton, 90s. Oh yeah, sci-fi, Gilmore Girls. I've never watched Gilmore Girls, but people tell me that I'm a lot like the mom from Gilmore Girls. Is that true? Is that a good thing? People have told me this before. Last Man on Earth. My husband loves Last Man on Earth, Sammy. He would love you for this. Star Trek, Queer Eye, Parks and Rec, Marvel, Game of Thrones. Look at this, rom-coms. Oh my God, Melissa, you could have a whole series on rom-coms. Amy Winehouse, yes. CBS Sunday Morning. So did my mom and my brother, Katie. So many good things from there. The Office, Mob Wives, Big Brother, yes. So we all have something that we could talk about or go back to. I'll give you another example of this. This is just like a minor. So this summer, when I had my ovarian surgery, my editor in my program, Brenna, who's amazing, she got the ladies in the society together and sent me a care package. And it made me laugh when I got it because I was like, oh my gosh, they know me so well. But it's also because, well, I talk about myself a lot. So in there was my favorite candy. There were Cadbury mini eggs in there, Nutrageous bars. There were magazines. There was like magazines about Real Housewives. It was like all of my favorite things that they knew because I've shared that about myself, right? Like my community, they know me without me needing to be like, oh yeah, this time I cried on my bathroom floor. And of course I have those moments that I've shared that are truly authentic, but it's not mostly what I share. It's mostly these slice of life moments or these things that I love around me. Oh, we have some people we have to admit. There we go. So I think that that's important to understand. Does that resonate for you? Just give me like a 50s music, Diana. That's awesome. Give me just a yes or whatever in the comments if that resonates for you, because I think that that's also an important distinction. Okay, great. Cool. Great. Okay, so now I want to teach you something because here's my other thing. So the other thing that I was noticing is that people are like, okay, Marie, so even if I have the stories, how the heck do I turn this around to bring it back to my audience? So you might sit down at your computer next time you write an email, and just what we've talked about, you're like, all right, I can attempt to use one of these stories or something that's going on in the pop culture world that I love. You may sit down and still feel like, how the heck do I tell this story? So I want to teach you very quickly this thing called the story strip down. Some of you may have heard this before, but I just think it's one of my favorite things. And if I can gift it to you here, especially because you've been part and you helped me raise $13,000 for Soulfire Farm, I really want to share it with you. So here's the structure of the story strip down, and then I'm going to give you an example. So the story strip down goes like this. First off, you want to think of like, what is that teachable moment or takeaway? So we're going to reverse engineer. You're going to go, what is that teachable moment or takeaway that I want to give my audience? So maybe it's like, okay, I want to show them about, these 3 steps to looking at your numbers more. Or I'm just going to use this through a financial coach lens, or the importance of sitting down and looking at your numbers, or some like mindset or like mantra things you can tell yourself as you're like digging into your money, right? So that might be the takeaway. So then you want to ask yourself, what's the struggle that my ideal client is facing that is like preventing them from like getting to this takeaway, like why they need this takeaway so badly? And then going, is there an emotion behind that struggle? And then when have I felt that emotion, or a client or someone else has felt that emotion? And what's a story that highlights it? So let me give you an example of this. So, and some of you may have heard this before, but I'm also a fan of repeating myself, because I think you should all be repeating yourself too, because people need to hear things a lot for it to absorb. So last year I was on a podcast where I was going to be featuring my subject line freebie for the very first time. And I knew that I wanted people to go listen to this podcast interview, and also because I wanted them to grab the subject line freebie. So I didn't want to just send an email that was like, go listen to this podcast. I really wanted people to take time to do it. So I walked myself through the story strip down. So the takeaway was that this subject line freebie there's 50 plus subject lines in there to swipe. There's 3 formulas. It's going to make it so easy to make sure that your email actually gets read by having a great subject line. The struggle that my ideal client is facing is that, sometimes it can be really overwhelming to choose a subject line. It's like, well, you've written this great email and now you got to make sure it gets open. There's so many choices. Oh, will this one get more open than this one, or this one, or what's the angle, or do I put them all in capital letters? Like, what's the best way to do it? And the emotion behind that is usually like the fear of getting it wrong, or that fear of choice, like that overwhelm of not knowing what to do, like having to just be like, oh, I can make this choice or this choice, and not knowing what the best choice is for you. So then I say, when have I felt that emotion? When have I experienced that overwhelm in my own life? Now, obviously it's likely going to be outside of copy, because that's my zone of genius. So that's not my place where I struggle. So I sat down and I thought to myself, okay, when have I felt this overwhelm of choice? And then as I started to just take my marketing hat off and put my creative hat on, I started to remember this conversation I had had with my mother-in-law, where my mother-in-law was telling me, my in-laws had this gorgeous new farmhouse. Everyone else in their 60s was like, peace out, Syracuse. I'm moving to Florida and living in a retirement community. And my in-laws were like, no, we're building our dream house. Like, we're Joanna and Chip Gaines, basically in our 60s. And the first time I ever walked in their house, I couldn't believe their kitchen. Their kitchen is like out of a movie. And I remember asking my mother-in-law, being like, Rachel, how did you pick this kitchen? She's like, oh, well, it was really overwhelming at first, but the contractor gave me a couple templates I could choose from. He gave me a couple layouts, and I picked this layout, and then we customized all the stuff that I wanted. And I was like, aha, that's the story that I'm going to tell. So I told that story, and I linked it back to the takeaway. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. If this loads. It's always like when you need things to load. Okay, can everyone see this email just to make sure? Okay, so it's official. My in-laws have a goat kitchen, greatest of all time. Light cabinets, equal parts brand new / I've lived here for 100 years vibe. Deep farmhouse sink so big I could bathe in it. An island the size of a small southern county. Every time I pour my Califia creamer into my Earl Grey tea in that paradise, I think, damn, my in-laws are ballers. I'm convinced at any moment, Jojo and Chip are going to pop out of the pantry to tell me how right side up this investment was for them. I remember asking my mother-in-law, Rachel, and yes, she does spell it E-A-L in case you think that was a typo. That's my mother-in-law. Rachel, how do you even begin to design this kitchen? It was overwhelming at first. Then they presented me with a few layouts, and once I picked a layout, I could customize. Sometimes a nice formula works well on your way to greatest of all time, you know? The same for copy, especially for subject lines. Nothing worse than writing a great email and then getting stuck on the subject line. Am I right? That's why I break down my 3 formulas for scroll stopping subject lines during my latest podcast interview, because you're one step closer to people buying from you if they open your email. You can find it here. So instead of having to say what would be the perfect story there, I simply walked myself through the story strip down. And I think that you can use this anytime for your stories. Now, before we go on, one thing I want to say about this is there's another small part to this, which is once you have the story, likely when you start writing it, you're going to write it out in like chronological order, right? You're going to be like, okay, and it's totally fine if you're like, there was this day when, and it kind of starts off kind of generic. And I would actually recommend that when you're writing your first draft to just write it out, get it out. You're not judging it. You're not in that phase of carving or editing. You're just in the phase of getting it all out there. Then you can go back and you can carve it. And the way that you can do that, I call the Cynthia Erivo method. Who is Cynthia Erivo? Cynthia Erivo is a Tony Award winning actress from the Color Purple revival. She's a master. She is the greatest of all time. And I had the unique pleasure of winning a lottery and sitting in a box seat to see her perform. When she sings her famous song from the show, it is not the end of the show, but at the end of her number, the entire audience did a standing ovation. I will never forget it. I have like chills thinking about it. It's not the end of the show. People just were so like, what the hell did I just experience? People were just standing up and cheering because that's how good she was. So in this revival of The Color Purple, it is directed by a director named Bartlett Sher, who is known for having a minimalist set. I'm talking like a piece of shiplap and a chair. So when Cynthia was singing, she brought everything that you saw to life. Like as she was singing, it was like, I saw what she saw. I felt what she felt. I heard what she heard, which is an acting technique that you can kind of originate to a teacher named Uta Hagen, which is this like sense memory, which is thinking about things in your own life, like what did I see? Asking yourself, what did I hear? What did I feel? So that you can recreate that moment on the stage. So in the same way, you can do this with your copy. So once you write out that rough draft, then you can go back and carve, and you can ask yourself, using this little Cynthia method, what did I see in this memory? What do I remember seeing? What do I remember hearing? What do I remember maybe even smelling? You don't have to hit all of these points. And what do I remember feeling? And then you can go back and start it off like that. So now do you see how the top of this changes? It's official. My in-laws have a goat kitchen, greatest of all time. What did I see? Light cabinets, equal parts brand new / I've lived here for 100 years. Deep farmhouse sink so big I could bathe in it. And you don't have to give all of these, right? I'm a writer. This is what I do all day long, right? But you could just give one of these points and you've answered the what did I see? An island the size of a small southern county. What did I hear? Or what did I feel, right? Every time I pour my Califia creamer, I think, damn, my in-laws are ballers. What did I hear? This conversation with my mother-in-law. I remember asking my mother-in-law, Rachel, how did you even begin to design this kitchen? Right? So now I've carved it out by asking myself, what did I see? What did I hear? What did I feel? I've recreated that moment for my audience so that they can experience that moment. So I want to make sure before we go on that resonates for you. So just give me give it to me in the comments so I know. Yes. Okay, awesome. And is this helpful to think about the story strip down? Because I think it helps to answer the question when everyone's out there telling you to tell more stories, right? You can run yourself through this at any time. Okay, great. Yes, awesome. Okay. The next thing that I want to share with you about is a lot of people were talking about when they were asking questions is how do I add my personality in? So here's one of my favorite ways to do this. So if you've ever gone through like a branding or a design, usually the person will ask you, hey, what's your favorite, what are your favorite colors? They'll ask you to go into your closet and say, what colors do you gravitate towards? Do you wear patterns? Do you wear solids? They're going to ask you. And I think it's great to also create what I call a word closet, to like do a little bit of a deep dive into words and phrases that you use. So this means that you can then go back through your copy, and where you might hear like generic kind of like, oh, it was awesome, you can replace that with a phrase or a word that you use. And the best place to look for stuff like this is to go back through text messages with people that are close in your life, with friends or family. See how you respond to things when somebody sends you something that you're surprised by or excited by. Looking at emails, looking how you comment on things on Facebook or on Instagram, the way that like in the moment when you're yourself doing those quick responses, the things that you say. And you can create a list for yourself. When I was a done for you copywriter, every client I worked with, I had them create a word closet. And they would inevitably come back and go, this sounds so much like me. And I'd be like, yeah, I know, because I used all your words. So you can create a word closet for yourself. So here's mine. I say soup to nuts a lot. It's like a thing my grandma said that a lot of people don't say, but I say it all the time. I say like rockin', baby cakes, schnooks. I sign my emails, copy that. I say doable, rad. I say like peep instead of saying like see my stories. A lot of times I'll say peep my stories, peep the testimonials. I say jazzed a lot. I say epic. I use a lot of like funny phrases, like I'll like different, like I'll say I'm, flying by the seat of my Spanx. Sometimes I'll say like, I didn't put this in here, but I have a tendency to like speak almost in song lyrics. Like I'll like if somebody in my friends doesn't tell me something, I'll be like, listen, it's fine. But in the words of Britney Spears from her first album, like #4, Don't Let Me Be the Last to Know, which is a song on Britney Spears' like first album. Or I'll say like in the words of Lady Gaga, like you were born this way, baby. So I might say that's actually on my website. On my services page, it says, in the words of Britney Spears, I'm like a firecracker, I make it hot. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't go back and ask my friends, like, what do I say all the time? And my friends are like, oh, well, you're always speaking us in song lyrics. You say jazz, you say this. So create your own word closet. And if you were to just pepper in your normal copy with just a little bit of these things that was more like you, you're already a small step closer to adding a little bit more of your personality into anything that you're writing. Okay. The other thing that I want to share with you is to just go back for a second about how you then transition. In fact, this probably should have come before, but that's okay. So how you transition. So let's say you're teaching somebody something in an email or a post, and you've done the story stripped down, or you have a story, but now you want to connect it back to your audience. I just want to give you a list of transitions that you can use to connect it back to your audience. So here's just some of mine. Sometimes I might tell a story. So let's say I tell a story about my grandpa, and I know that it connects somehow to what I'm teaching, but I don't have anything too smooth. I have a lot of like just clunky transitions, and I own it. So a lot of times you might see in an email, I'll say, I just got done telling you a story, and I'll go, why am I telling you this? Because I know you might feel like this in your copy, right? Or when this awesome thing happened to me, I thought about you. Here's why. Or has this ever been you? Thought so, and then go into that teachable moment. Or if I'm celebrating something, you saw me do this in the copy chat emails. I talked about how Stephen Moyer played Bill from True Blood. He sent a video to me like 2 years ago because my friend was working on a show with him. And I was like, I am like in love, like low key in love with him, even though we're both married, it's fine. And he sent a video to me where he like said my name right. And so that's the night before copy chat. I said, this is what happened to me with Stephen Moyer, but guess what? I mean, doesn't that sound awesome? Well, the copy chat's going to be even better than that because we're going to be talking about A, B, and C, right? Or it got me thinking that when I told you this story, it got me thinking about this. So there's some of these transitions that you can use that can help connect you from where something feels like, okay, I have this story, but I'm not exactly sure how to connect it back to my audience. So let's just take a quick pause there before I just show you this last thing about signature stories. And let's just see, like, does that resonate for you? Just want to see anything that might be coming up for you as you're just hearing about this idea of adding more personality and stories and these moments to your copy. Awesome. You need a word closet makeover. I use the same phrases way too many. And that's okay. I use the same phrases all the time, Sherry. It's totally okay. This is really great. Awesome. Okay, let me know. I'm just scrolling back up. It's helpful. Okay, it's backwards from how I think about it. Annie says I always start with a good story and then figure out how to turn it. Love this way more. Okay, cool. Yeah, I find it's really helpful to sit with. Okay, Kelly, this is so valuable. Okay, awesome. Great question. This is eye-opening. If I missed a question, I'll go back and I'll look. Okay, great. So let me just also, before we dive into some of these other questions that you asked, the other thing that I was hearing a lot was, how do I actually craft signature stories? Or if I'm on a podcast or someone's asking me, or like crafting these things that I can bring up again and again. So has this been something that you have had? I know, speaking of Melissa, over your ear, because Melissa, I know you asked me this question specifically. And so I was seeing that this kept coming up a little, like over and over, of like, what do I go back to tell? Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen one last time. Okay, so let's talk about this. Crafting your signature story or stories. So this is the answer to somebody going, how did you start your business? Or how did you get to where you are today? Somebody on a podcast, a summit, somehow somebody asks you, what's your origin story, right? So here's the most important thing to know. If you remember the movie The Joker that came out 2 years ago, I don't know anything about DC. I don't really know anything about comics, but my husband does. And I said to my husband, I'm like, okay, so this is the origin story of the Joker? And my husband was like, well, there's a lot of origin stories of the Joker. He's like, it just depends. Sometimes he like fell in a vat somewhere. He was born this way. There's all these things. I was like, oh, he has multiple origin stories. And Eric's like, yeah, so that's why you can keep creating different versions. So just like the Joker, we all have multiple origin stories. Some of us have that Elizabeth Gilbert like crying on the bathroom floor story, and that's the one we're leading with. But chances are we have these significant moments throughout our life or throughout our journey to our business that matter and could be carved into a story to tell in a bigger setting. So how do you do this? The first thing you want to do is, I don't know if anybody here loves reading InStyle magazine, but like an old InStyle magazine, do you remember they would like take one like fashionista and they would do a timeline of that person's fashion? And they would be like, in the 90s, like this year, this was her best dress. Then she wore this to the Golden Globes. Then she saw this at the Oscars. So in the same sense, what you want to do is create like your character arc. Even if you are listing out, so I would say for me, I would go, okay, 2010, Marisa applied to grad school. 2011, Marisa gets accepted to Harvard University. And like that, like simple. Okay, Marisa goes to school, like actually filling it out all the way up until modern day, like right now. And just clocking all of these things that I've done, like my own like little fashionista timeline. Then I want to go back through and I want to look and I want to go, okay, are any of these like truly significant? Because sometimes I might want to just be like, okay, yeah, I got into Harvard, but Harvard alone is not like the story. But are there some like significant scenes or moments or memories that I could pull out? Then as I start to pull those moments out, I might be like, okay, well, and I'll go back through and I'll go, okay, well, I know when I decided to stop acting, I was auditioning for Winnie the Pooh, and that was a really stressful day. So, okay, I'm going to circle that. That's a moment. Or when I got out of grad school, I was working at this chiropractor's office, and I used to always, go, and I was really, really great at that job. Maybe that's something. Okay, I'm going to circle that. So I'm going to cite some of these significant scenes. Then once I have that, likely there could still be a bunch. And then I want to narrow it down, at least to start, to like 1 or 2 moments that I would love to take and actually take time to carve those moments in. And this is just a matter of choice. Or actually maybe, if you have like a business bestie or you're in a community or a mastermind where you can say, hey, here's some of my significant scenes. Do any of these really resonate with you that you think could be great for me to turn into more of a signature story, carving those moments into a story? And then once you have that, you can really take the time to carve them and then be able to use them in a podcast. So for example, when I go back through and I look, I know that Winnie the Pooh moment, me auditioning for Winnie the Pooh, was a big turning point for me. So I want to grab that one out. That's definitely going to be one that I tell. Another one is definitely going to be that I used to work at the doctor's office, and I want to talk about how that's actually helped me in my copy journey. The other one that you may have recently heard me talk about lately is this time I went to Al Pacino's house, which is a little bit more like, I'm going to use that story no matter what, because it was Al Pacino's house. But there is something that I learned from that moment, right? And so then I'm going to say, okay, I auditioned for Winnie the Pooh, and now I can start to carve it. Now I can start off with that hook. Well, you might say that Winnie the Pooh broke me. People are like, what do you mean? And then I can go in and tell that story. When I auditioned, I was auditioning for Winnie the Pooh. They told me they didn't need me anymore. And that moment just cracked me. I just was like, I cannot do this anymore. I can't leave my life up to someone else dictating my fate. And I worked so hard on this, and I felt like my talents and the things that I love to do are being wasted. So I'm leaving this behind, and I'm going to step into acting. So that's like a significant moment that I then can carve more into a story. So I really, really encourage you to do this in full, all of these steps, because very often for some of us, we might know those moments, but I think actually taking the time to like craft your character arc and see where you've come from, there may be hidden moments that you've forgotten about, or that you're like, oh, actually, this could be something that could really work well on a podcast, or if someone was to ask me. So even as you're just sitting here, if there's like a significant scene that you can remember, you can pop that in the comments. Like, what might that look like for you? And again, it could even be, that moment when I decided to leave my corporate job and start my business, or a moment with my kids, or, I've always had a knack for doing my business. And here was that time that it really clicked for me that I was actually really good at this. So what might that be if you just take a moment to kind of think about it, and you can pop that into the comments. Just going to take a sip of my water and take a peek. Jen says, my hairstylist disappeared and I ended up in a random hairstylist seat, and she was my first and longest client going on 10 plus years. So cool. What a significant scene. I love this. Yep, Brian, I know, saying bye to acting, right? Yep. And then I'd go like, okay, right, like what was that what was a significant moment in there, like a particular audition or moment or time, which I'm sure you probably have, but like, because I knew for me, it was like I was leaving acting behind, but okay, what was that moment that I could tell? What was that specific thing? And really, let me also tell you guys this. Was it just Winnie the Pooh? No. But when I look back, I go, okay, that is something that I can cling on to. I mean, I had been feeling that way for months, but there was that moment where it was just like the tipping point for me. So instead of this wasting all this time on a podcast being like, I had felt this way for months, I just hook right into that moment of like, well, you could say Winnie the Pooh broke me. Tripping on acid led to a massive spiritual awakening. Oh my gosh, you guys have so many great things. This is so great. As an intern, yep, Lauren says, yes, I do remember the first time I hung up the phone on someone and said, yes, I can do this for a living. Amazing, Lauren. So I'd love if you went back now and tried to see, like, what do you remember from that story, right? What did you see? What did you hear? How did you feel, right? And start to craft that into something that you could tell in a bigger stage. Jennifer, I was asked to do makeup when I never done it before. Well, I'm so glad that you did, because when I was an actor, Jennifer did my makeup and I looked beautiful. So I'm so glad that you did. That's amazing. Emily says, I used to get in trouble as a first grade at a Catholic school. Me too, for asking too many questions. Miss Mitcher was my first grade teacher. Fast forward now, curiosity is how I approach everything. Love that. Love that. Who done it in the psychiatry office when the office manager told all the staff someone had some credit card refunding grifting going on for months. Like, look at all this awesome stuff. Getting all my fourth graders up and dancing. This is so great. Okay, good. I'm so glad. So I want to make sure that this is really resonating for you. So does it see how you can start to cite some of these scenes and like pick one or two and just start practicing with those. The next time you're featured somewhere or doing something, like, okay, I'm going to try this out. And the most important thing is the testing. The very first time I was on some podcast, I'm like, shit, I don't know. Here's an idea. and then going back and listening and being like, okay, that took me way too long to explain. Here's how it's going to be better next time, or here's what I'm going to do next time. Right? Okay, great. So is that helpful? I want to make sure, because that's a lot of time listening to me talk. So I want to make sure it's helpful. Okay, great. Awesome. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to just go through, make sure no one's waiting to get in. Okay. And just answer some of these like key questions that I think could be helpful for everybody. Okay. Okay. So, Tisha, I don't know if you're here. And if you are here, if I'm reading your answer, you could just quickly unmute yourself and tell me like, hey, I'm here.
I'm here.
Hi, Tisha. Hello. Okay, awesome. So I know that you had asked thoughts on a long form sales page. And you would ask like, does it really need to be this long, or what's the best way to do this version, right? Is that correct, Tisha?
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen it done both ways, shorter sales pages. And for me personally, I prefer a shorter sales page as long as it's to the point and gives me, so I know exactly what it is. But then I've also seen the longer sales pages where I've needed that before making a decision. So I'm just not sure.
Yeah, that's great. I think you said something really key. Tisha, can I ask you a question? When it was longer, why did you need more of that information?
It was a higher priced point product than the shorter sales page, and throwing away, well, I don't want to say throwing away, handing over $27 versus it was a $197 product.
Right. So it was a little bit more money for you. So making sure that like you were actually making the right decision for you.
Yep.
So this is very important for Tish and for anyone else that's answering this, is that the answer to how long a sales page should be what is the information that you need to share for that person to make the most informed decision for themselves. So you want to ask yourself, where did this person come before this? Is this a cold page for them? Have they been sent here by someone? Where are they? I'm not like a funnel person, but like, where are they in my world? Where are they on their journey with me? So do I need to send a little bit more information so that they are able to make the best decision for them? Right? So we want to first consider, and if you see me looking down, it's because I have notes on all of this for you guys. So it's really making sure like what needs to be said for this person to make the right decision for themselves. How warm or cold is this lead? And another thing that you want to think of is, if you were part of Copy Chat a few seasons ago, we had Tarzan K and Sage Polaris on together in a joint interview. And they talked about this color kind of coded system. And they compared it to the characters of Friends. So this is not my own, this is Tarzan and Sage. And they talked about how there's these different colors and different buyer personas. So there are the reds, who are like Monica, where they just maybe need to see that link, like the information, and they're ready to go. They're not going to read all the stuff. Then there's the blues. Those are Phoebes. They need to see that personal story. They need to feel like that relatability with you. So if you skip out on having a story about you or why it was important for you to this product or this thing that you're offering, you're going to miss out on getting Phoebes to buy from you. Then there are the yellows. Those are the Joeys. Those are why you want some of the more fun moments, those personality pops, little bit of ways where you're like, this is for you if, this is for you if, like these little ways that you can pull out some more of those fun moments. And so if you don't have elements of that, you might miss out on having your Joeys, and Joeys can be a great addition to any group, right? And then your final are your greens. Those are your Rosses. Those are the people that are going to read every inch of your sales page, the FAQ, the who it's for, the who it isn't, the features, the benefits, and they're still going to email you and tell you you had a typo on the sales page and probably have another question. But we need our Rosses, because Rosses are great, incredible people as well. So very often, if you don't have those elements present for those different people on sales pages, you're missing out on that. And many of us can be a combo. And here's the important part. Just because we're one thing, we think that that's how other people are going to read or view a sales page. And that's not true. So I'm very much a Phoebe. I never even know what I'm giving my money over for. If I love the person and I feel like it can help me, I'm in. I never look at the other stuff. I don't know what time we're meeting. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I just know I'm in. And sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I signed up for something that's at the same time when I teach. Whoops, I'll have to figure this out. Right. So I have to be conscious in my copy that I have a link like right at the top for the Monicas who want to take that quick action. That I have very clear FAQs for those Rosses, and that I'm also a Joey too, so that there's those funny moments as well. But if I go to someone's sales page and they don't tell me why they've created it or why it's important to them, I'm not going to buy it. I'm a Phoebe. I need to see that. So does this resonate? So instead of going, oh God, this sales page feels long to me, instead going, have I made this clear enough for the different people that need to run through this? Because we all are skimmers. Only the Rosses are reading every word, but the rest of us are going to skip down to the parts that stand out to us. So if we don't have those for those people, they're going to leave and we're going to miss out on them. So instead of being caught up in, is this long? Is this? I want you to think about it in this way. Tish, is that helpful?
Yes, thank you so much. That was
Okay,
great.
cool.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And inside the Copy Confidence Society, I've narrowed sales pages down to 10 steps. Okay. I love to write sales pages, like my go-to. I love them. And I know that they can make you want to rip your hair out. Okay. So I've tried to narrow it down to the easiest that I can for my peeps in the society. And one of the things that we talk about is just making sure that these things are always present, that there is a personal story of why does this matter to you? One of these signature stories could be perfect there. So for a long time on the Copy Confidence Society page, I used that story of, I used to work for this doctor's office and I used to carry around a human spine in a suitcase, not a real one, a fake one. And I used to carry these like skeletons, like, into these big, like JP Morgan, all these places. And I was amazing. I could get anybody to come in for an appointment. I was amazing at it. And I realized that all the things that I was doing there could be applied to your business and your copy. So I had that story, right? Another thing you want to make sure is that the pain points and the benefits are clear. And you also want to make sure you have a clear who it's for and who it's not for, and an FAQ section. So even though I'm a Phoebe, the other thing I will read is the FAQs. Just give it to me straight. The Q, the answer, the Q, the answer. I'll skip right down to that. So you want to make sure you have those moments, right? We kind of make it down into 10 steps, but if you can have those, it's going to make it a hell of a lot easier. Okay, great. Awesome. Our next question is from Jennifer. And I think you say your last name Carnes. Jennifer, are you here? It's C-A-I-R-N-S. And if I said that wrong, I apologize. But if you're here, give me a shout. So Jennifer actually had a really great question about Facebook ad headlines, which I wanted to answer because I think headlines in general are a really great question to answer. But I am like an apple, meaning, for now, I'm an organic little apple, meaning I have never run a Facebook ad ever. I'm not against it or not. It's just, that's my jam. My jam is the copy chat, and that's where my focus has been, right? But I am very, very lucky to have who I think is like the best Facebook ads person in the world as one of my clients, and that is the great Katie Spellman. Katie, are you here? Will you unmute yourself?
I am here.
Hi. Okay, awesome. So Katie, we actually have a guest answer to this question. So Katie, do you actually want to answer this, or do you want me to do it? I'll do it for you. Do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it? I know I just put you on the spot. That wasn't what we had decided.
No, you go ahead.
I said I'm going to do it. Okay. So first off, so here's what Katie offered, which I thought was so great when you're thinking about headlines. She says that there's 3 ways that you can look at this. So number 1, your headline could solve the problem. The number 2 thing that it could do is call out the person. And I'll give you examples of this. And the other one could be like unexpected. So let's say that Katie was talking about this for moms who are trying to get their kids to, like, their baby to sleep. So to solve the problem, the headline could be 3 secrets to getting your baby to sleep through the night. And let me know if this resonates. You tell me in the comments. If you want to call out that person, it might say, calling all new mamas who want to get their baby to sleep. Or the unexpected one could be something that they're not expecting. So saying something that they believe might be the way to go, and then being like, there's a better way or there's a different way. So the example that Katie gave us was skip the swaddle. What tire moms need to do instead to get their kids to sleep in a less amount of time. So you can solve the problem, You can call out the person, or you can have unexpected. Is that helpful? I think that's important. And I want to thank Katie for offering this to us, because Katie is like the person when it comes to Facebook ads. This is somebody who like has a client's lead magnet page like converting at 57%, which is like amazing. One of her recent clients, they haven't even started selling the thing that they're doing. They're just like in the webinar stage, and they already have people signing up for the actual program. Not even like, people are like, I love this ad so much, how do I get to what the next step is? So Katie knows her shit. So I was so glad that Katie was able to offer some of these ways that she works with her clients to make sure that that copy pops right away. But in general, what I love about this is, even though it's for ads, even if you're not running ads, it's a great way to think about your headlines, right? You can think about, what's the problem that I solve? Could I call out my ideal client, or is there something unexpected I could say here? And you could give yourself one of each, test them out, and then see which one you gravitate towards. Katie, good? Great, awesome. Yeah, Katie's amazing. Okay, great. Okay, our next question was, hold on, I'm just looking through here. Oh yes, this was also something else that someone had asked in here, and I don't have the name, so I apologize, but someone had asking, like, I feel like I'm preaching all the time, right? When I do my copy, what's wrong, like, how can I do this without not feeling like I'm preaching? So one of the things that I want to say about this is, there's nothing wrong with preaching. Nothing wrong with it. The problem with this is that we have that self-critic, and you can let me know if this feels like you. We have this self-critic sometimes that's like telling us, oh no, like it's going back to what I said to you in the beginning when I told that story about being on the photo shoot and playing small. Right? We think, oh, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, or I'm saying this too much. But there are studies and there's data that shows that people need to hear things 8, 9, 10 times. So repeating yourself is okay, right? And you also want to think, you want to believe so much in what you're putting out into the world. And if you show up and you have that belief, it is all right that it may, like, there's a reason why we are attracted. I grew up in a like a religious home, in a religious household. There's a reason why we like go to church and feel, because we want to feel that feeling, right? We want to feel that feeling where somebody is like calling us forth to like shift our beliefs and change and grow, right? There's a reason why church works. So if you feel that way, I would actually ask you to check yourself and go, where's the disconnect? Is it maybe that I don't feel as, connected to what I'm teaching? Am I just worried about what other people think? Am I being too much of a self-critic? And just like risk preaching, risk being on the soapbox. It's all right. It's okay. And so I just wanted to make sure that if anybody, I can't remember who asked that, but it was something that I starred, because I think it can stop us from pushing post or going live or doing things. And remembering that someone out there needs to hear what you're saying in that moment, from the smallest things to the biggest things. Cool? Okay, great. Okay, Jill Taylor, are you here? I also thought that was such a great name. It's like Jill Taylor. I loved it. I don't know if you're here, Jill, but I like your name. So Jill was saying, how do you market to a small email list versus, is that Jill Taylor? Is that her name? That's right. Tim, the Toolman Taylor, and his wife's name was Jill. Oh my God, that's so cool. Okay. Okay, Jill Taylor, not the Jill Taylor from Home Improvement. So marketing to a small email list versus like a bigger email list. Are there differences that you have to think about? So here's what I want to say about this. I think that a lot of bigger email lists could actually take a lot from people who have smaller audiences. So if right now, and like pop in the comments if you feel like you have a small audience. I mean, in the world of like mega lists and all this stuff, I have a small audience. So yeah, okay, we are at such an advantage from having a small audience, because this means that you can actually reach out and have human connections with people. And if like 2020 has taught us anything, people are craving this kind of human connection, right? And if we think about people that even have bigger audiences, I don't know if you remember last on Kira and Rob's interview from Copy Chat for the podcast, Rob was talking about how Seth Godin still responds to every single one of his emails. He may not say a bunch, but he responds and you know it's from him. So if Seth Godin can respond to his emails, we can all respond to our emails. And I think that we're always worried about how many days should I post? How often should I post on this? What should it say? And I actually would say, I'd love if you stopped thinking like that and saying, who can I connect with today? Because that's going to take you further in your biz. So looking at your email community, like for the lack of a better word, like giving a shit about it. And if someone responds to you, taking time to respond back to them. Other ways that you can do this is I love using BombBomb. I pay for it for the year, but you could use Loom. There's other things that you can use as well. I love BombBomb because I can just embed it right in and send it as a response. So sometimes if I don't feel like typing, I could just be like, oh my gosh, Emily, thanks so much for responding. I love this. Answer, so happy that you're part of our community. Boom, it's sent to her. And it's like this little 1-minute video, heart Emily. And if you want to send it to somebody, you can even just write there so they know it's not like a mass reply. You could even just take like a little piece of paper like this, and I could just write Emily across. So that video, like it takes a little screenshot of you and Emily would know, oh, this is for me. I don't always do that in my quick responses, but if you wanted to as well. So finding these ways to have that individual connection. Going back to sales page, let's say you're launching and somebody clicks through to your sales page, but they haven't bought. Most email providers show you who's clicked through. Individually reach out to those people and say, hey, Emily, I saw that you clicked the page for the Copy Confidence Society. ConvertKit has a way of letting me know. Promise I'm not stalking you. But do you have any questions I can answer for you? Hit me up, right? I'm not saying that Emily's going to buy, but I'm going to say Emily, even if she doesn't, is going to do the 3 R's. She's going to remember me, she's going to rave about me, and she's going to refer me, which is going to do way more for your business than sitting around and going, how can I make this Instagram post perfect? You feel me? So even if you have the smallest audience, like be excited about that because there's the more connections that you can have. Yes, bomb, which is a little weird that they named it bomb. I'm always just yelling out bomb in places. And one time my husband was like, I don't think you should be yelling that loudly. I'm like, yeah, bomb, get it, Okay, great. Yeah, that's it. So, and I think that that's important and actually goes into another question that somebody asked me, which is like, what's one of the advice that has really yielded results in your business that no one wants to hear, which I thought was an interesting question. And it's that it doesn't matter how many times you post. It doesn't matter the template, the 52 post template that's going to get, none of it matters. None of it matters. What matters is connecting with people as a human and risking that not maybe doing it right at first. But every time you think, maybe I got to do another post, I would encourage you to reach out to somebody. That's how I've built my business from the absolute beginning. And I think that when you have a smaller audience and you can set yourself up that way. Now, of course, as you grow, there may be areas where customer support has to step in. If you guys had questions about Copy Chat last week about where to find links, it would actually be, rude of me if I didn't have my team respond because you'd still be waiting for a response. So of course, there's things where Emily and Hosanna have to step into and have that customer support. But the rest of it, that still comes from me and I want it to come from me in that sense. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure. Because now I feel like I'm preaching. Wink, wink. But it's okay. Okay, awesome. Another question, I want to go back. I think this was Marlo. And Marlo, if you're here, I know we talked already about this private life versus business. This was your question. And I got it a bunch, which is why I wanted to teach on that a little bit. But another thing that I want to say when you're thinking about which thing to choose is to ask yourself, is this a moment in my life? And I can't remember where I heard this from. It's not mine, but I don't know who to give it credit to. I really don't remember. But is it a scar or is it a wound? Is it something that I'm on the other side of that I really feel I can share from a place of like I'm on the other side? Or is it still a wound? So if it's one of those more vulnerable moments and you might want to share it, ask yourself, am I on the other side of this? Do I feel like I can fully share it? So no matter the responses that come back to me, it's not going to rattle me? Or is this still a wound in my life and it's not time for me to share it? I think that that's another measurement tool that you can use as well. Marie Forleo said that. Thank you, Melissa. Well, there's a person to remember. Awesome. I think that that's important. So I wanted to just bring that up again. And again, going back to what we talked about, it doesn't need to be life or death. It can be those slice of life moments. And in fact, even starting there can help you ease into maybe a more vulnerable story that you want to share in the future. Okay. I'm just checking these other. Okay, great. Brenda, I don't know if you're here, Brenda. But Brenda had a question about, I'm just taking a sip of my water. This is what it's come to at 36 to get me to drink water. And as you can see, I'm really behind today. Whoops. Okay. So Brenda was talking about, finding my voice, right? What do you do when you're like afraid how it's going to go over with people? And again, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think again, it's important to remember that you're not just saying stuff to like upset the apple cart. There's a lot of apple things here. We're not just putting out stuff at the hopes it's going to like ruffle feathers, but we may be saying something that's like, my friend Christine talks about this. It's like celebrating things in your bit, like in your niche, like there's the hit list, things that you want to celebrate. And then there's the shit list. There's things that are practices. And I would love for you to put them in the comments, like things that you see in your niche that like, need to change. It's a myth that someone's believing, it's not working. So you owe it to your ideal client and your audience to like try and shift that belief for them or show them what they might be believing that's actually not serving them. And so we may risk that people are going to have an opinion about that, but that doesn't mean that the right people aren't going to be attracted to it. And it actually means that, you've hit on something that people need to be having a conversation around. Now, mind you, this means that you're not saying anything that's intrinsically homophobic, racist, xenophobic, or anti-Semitic. If it is, you should probably exit this call. But with that aside, really looking and saying, let's say you're in the weight loss world and you're hearing all these things about the diet culture, the new fads that you just keep putting people in the same spiral. Well, you owe it to your audience to come out and say, hey, I want to call bullshit on this. Because the right person is going to be like, oh my gosh, I've been dying. I've been waiting for somebody to say this. Or if you feel like there's this thing that you got to post every day or this hustle and grind culture, and you want to say, actually, I call bullshit on that. There are so many people who are like, oh, thank God, I don't want to post every day. I'm so glad that you said that, right? So I think it's important to remember that. And also having what I call your go-to buckets that you can also use to like break that up. So if you have a belief kind of shifting post that goes out, what are some other things around it where you can show other elements of your personality or yourself? So going back to those story prompts or going back to that pop culture list. For myself, my buckets are obviously teaching about copy and business and stuff and summits. But I know if I ever share anything about like my grandpa or my family or my dog, Jake, that people are really going to love that. I know if I share something about what I'm watching on TV. So I think it's important to also have your buckets as well that you can go back to. So if you've shared something that you can always go back to some more of your fun buckets as well. So when I make sure, does that make sense for everyone that's listening in? Great. Okay, good. And oh, this is also goes along with this. Annie, I think you asked this. Annie, are you here? If you're here, Annie. But also thinking about, so we talked about these like slice of life buckets. So Annie was asking, how do you lighten up your copy, right? So we talked about this a little bit. Your word closet, all these ways that can help kind of lighten it up. But if you're also thinking about how can I add some humor to my copy, add some humor to it, I think one of the best things that you can do is watch really great comedies. Watch really great like stand-up comedy. Like go on a hunt and watch people do it well. Watch how they tell stories, watch it. So if there's some great comedians that everyone loves, pop them in the comments. Right? Some of my favorites, I grew up in like an Italian household. I really gravitate towards this comic named Sebastian Maniscalco. Like the way he tells stories about his family, I'm like, oh, it's so good. And it helps me in ways that I can do that. Also reading really great, stepping out of reading the latest business book and read like great books, like reading Bossy Pants by Tina Fey, reading like Mindy Kaling's book, like reading books where I'm going to list like a lot of great women are in their element of being funny. Read Augustin Burroughs, read David Sedaris, read great people doing it and doing it well. And that goes for anything, reading other great novels as well. I find like right now I'm reading this book called Infinite Country by Patricia Englo, and her stuff, it's about this Colombian family who comes to America, what it's like to live as, as an immigrant in this country. And her sentences are so beautiful and sweeping. And I find myself writing like that a little bit lately, right? It starts absorbing you. And I'm learning more from that than I am of reading another marketing book, right? So I think that's important. Oh, look, I love Jimmy Carr. Can we talk about Jimmy Carr? I freaking love Jimmy Carr. This is great. Yeah, Eddie Izzard. This is great. Tiffany Haddish, Kevin Hart, Jimmy Kimmel, Nora Ephron. Yep. Like whenever you're sitting down, you're like, oh, what should I watch? I mean, just turn on Patton Oswalt. And there's something for everyone. Even there's this really great comic my husband loves. Eric Ron White. Is that it? So my husband like hates all the like Jeff Foxworthy, like that whole like the cable guy. And the only guy he likes from that is this guy named Ron White, who like, you want to talk about being yourself? He like drinks on stage. He's like drinking whiskey on stage and smokes cigars and like does comedy. So you'll also see like how people show up and are fully themselves on the stage. Like what does that stage look like for them? What elements do they use? And ways that they really incorporate it. Like Mike Birbiglia, it's almost like a one-man show. So there's deeper stuff behind it, but there's also the comedy and seeing how people do that. Of course, Stephen Colbert. Yeah, Stephen Colbert is so great. And those short little things that keep your attention as well. Awesome. And I'm just looking to see if there was another one that I started before we just take a few moments to open it up to any other questions. Oh, Kat, I don't know if you're here. Kat O'Brien asked me this. She said, what is the single best thing that I've ever done for my business? And like, what books have I also read that have been helpful? So this will be a good way. So the single best thing I ever did for my business, you probably heard me say it before, I'll say it again, is I created my own stage. I created my own stage. I did not wait around for somebody to give me permission or let me into a clique. I started my own clique, started my own community. I took everything that I learned as an actor. So a lot of times in the acting world, a lot of ways that I saw my friends really break into it was doing a stand-up show or doing a web series or a one-woman show. If anybody knows like Issa Rae or Phoebe Waller-Bridge, they both had like one-woman shows that if you guys were fans of Fleabag, which if you are, you can pop in the comments because I love Fleabag. That was a one-woman show in London. And people came and saw her. And that's how she became Phoebe Waller-Bridge, right? Who swept the Golden Globes, who swept the Emmys, who got to cast the entire show. So the hot priest was her friend, Andrew Scott, who we all like know and love, but that was her friend from Summer Stock when they were like kids. And she was like, it has to be him, right? So she created her own stage. So I was like, okay, I couldn't make it work in the actor world, but I'm fucking making it work here. And I created my own stage. And that's the best thing that I can tell you. And you can start small, whether that's a Facebook group, a masterclass, a podcast, a summit, whatever it is, create your own space and bring your community to you in that way. And the best books that I've read are, and some of them you'll see on my bookshelf, are The Big Leap. I love The Big Leap. I read it again and again. Overcoming Under-Earning by Barbara Stanny, which is right here. Chris Voss. I've watched his masterclass and he also has his book as well. It's great if like diving into more of like, he was a former FBI hostage negotiator. And Anne Handley, Everybody Writes. And for me, outside of that, I really don't read any other kind of businessy or like books. I read a lot of novels. I read a lot of novels and a lot of memoirs. And my favorite book, if you probably heard me talk about it, I include it in the business book bundle. Best book I've ever read in my life is Kindred by Octavia Butler. And it's a great example of creating your own stage and of like being a trailblazer, coming in as a Black woman and saying, I have a place in writing in the sci-fi world, and I'm also going to make it mean something, and it's going to be about social justice, and it's going to be about slavery and time travel and all this stuff. And every time I read it, I'm reminded that, especially, I know a lot of us are women or we identify as women here, like we have so much power in us to be those trailblazers and create new spaces. So if you've never read Kindred, you should. You'll literally zip through it. Issy, it's coming to, Issy, you won the book bundle, right? It's coming to your house soon. I just ordered it for you last night. So those would be the things. So I know that there was a lot of things in there, but I wanted to make sure that I was just really speaking to overall what I was seeing. So I'd love to just open it up if there's other questions or insights that have come up that I could just answer a little bit for you if something is that. And if that's the case, you can just unmute yourself. You don't have to actually raise your hand. You can just unmute yourself if there's a question or something that you want to ask. Don't be shy.
Oh, I
Hi,
have a
Marlo.
hi. I have a question. How do you know when you've gone like perhaps gone too far in your origin story?
Mm,
Um, and you don't want, for example, I work a lot with children stories, but I don't want to go so far as to, there's a lot of abuse in children.
yeah.
You don't want to talk about things like that, and you want to keep it like fun, spiritual type of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, really, again, seeing if there's a specific moment or like a time, like a specific moment with a with your work with children or a specific child, or like one story you could pull out and you could tell that particular moment without feeling like you have to tell, oh, the screen moved, you're over here now. Like without it feeling like you've had to dive so much into it, but just that particular moment. And so the first time that you write it out, Marlo, or you speak it out, you may feel like it's gone too far. But then you can go back, which is why I think it's great to record yourself, like before you even like record yourself, and then listen back to it. And then you got to put your editing hat on a little bit and say, okay, what parts could I just cut out here? Which can be kind of hard as an editor, which is why I always think if you can have somebody else that you trust. Now, this is important. You don't want to go to the hardware store for milk, meaning you want to ask somebody who gets what you're doing, right? Who understands. We don't always want to ask anybody, but to say, hey, could you listen to this? I'm thinking about using this. Could you tell me where maybe I lose you in the story? Or you think I've gone a little bit too far, or I could tighten it up? And again, you're not going to ask 10 people. You're going to ask like maybe 2 max, and just have them kind of listen to it and see where you could tighten it up a little bit more. Is that helpful? Yeah. Oh, you're on mute now.
Yeah, there I go. Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Okay. Good, good. It's a great question. Sometimes what happens is we then have to do that third part, which is the editing part, which it's not sexy. I wish I had a sexy answer for you. Sometimes you just got to start slashing stuff and just be like, I know I'll get to use this someday, but it's not going to be now. And so sometimes asking other people that, again, are close to us, that get what we're doing, can be like, you know what? You lost me there. I don't think you need that part. And we just have to go, okay, cool, slash on to the next, right? Because one of the parts about our businesses is we do need to have a little bit of that urgency and that action taking in us to be like, okay, it's done is better than perfect. Let me go test this out. I could always add it back in if I needed to. Great. What else?
Hey, Marissa, I have a question.
Hi,
Can you
Kathleen.
hear me? Hi.
I can hear you.
So,
Hi.
yeah, so I'm kind of late to the copywriting party. This is like unbelievable to me.
Welcome.
I know. So I've published 2 books and did a documentary film for 3 years, and I have a well-established nutrition practice and my own, clinical practice, and I've been on big stages. And so I did all of the things, but built my business up organically over, the last 10 years. And now I'm doing what you talked about, which is really creating my own stage. And
Beautiful.
instead of speaking at other people's events, like really building my own platform for my own audience. And I have a very loyal audience, very dedicated. They've stayed with me for the 10 years. So this is just so unbelievable to me, because I never really understood the messaging and the copywriting. And now I'm at that place where I'm revisiting and rewriting the copy for my website and my brand and my vision and my mission and all of the things. And I'm so in love with everything that you're saying. And so now I'm sort of like, well, where do I begin when I'm looking at all of those things, my social media platform, my business, my brand, my voice, even my content and my deliverables.
Yep.
Can you make a recommendation for someone like me who has really created a lot of content, but now I want to strip that down and cull it down and make sure that it is representing who I am today, the important parts of my story, so that my audience recognizes what it is that my brand represents today, and they see themselves in what it is that I'm offering.
Yeah.
And what's a good place for me to go as far as hiring a copywriter and or a resource?
Great. This is such a good question, Kathleen. Thank you for sharing this. Okay. So if it were me, here's what I always go back to. I go back to the messaging. And I think that what tends to happen to us is like, okay, we have our sentence or we have our, our messaging, and we're like, okay, that's it, done here. But we forget that our messaging evolves with us and it changes. So every few years, it's really important to go back. So for everybody who listened to Dr. Michelle's interview, which was day 1 last week, to go back to your messaging and saying, does this represent where I am now? So even before you go to the copy, here is the truth. The best copy cannot fix a muddied message. So a lot of times people try to hire a copywriter, and I've been that copywriter, and you're like, but what are you selling though? Like, what's the message? And they're like, well, just write the sales page. And it's like, no, we got to go back to this first. So taking time to really focus on that. So finding a community or a place where messaging is that key. So in fact, it's why, so the first time I did this, the Copy Confidence Society, way first time I did it, when everybody joined, I realized that we needed a messaging component. I was like, shit, no one is here is ready to dive into their copy. They got to go back. So from that point on, messaging has always been the very first thing we tackle in the society. And until we know what that is, you can't go any further. So give yourself some time to check back in on that. And when you, Kathleen, talk about what you do, that it feels really connected for you. Then from there, I would look and make sure that your what we call like your copy, like your core copy assets are done and dusted. This is going to be different for everybody. Some people might be like, okay, I have my message. You know what? My website is good for now. But you know what? My lead magnet really doesn't. The way in with me doesn't represent this. I got to tweak this. Or my welcome sequence does not represent where I am now. I got to tweak this. This doesn't mean every copy asset. This means like 1 to 2 copy assets. Do those match the messaging? Okay, I'm ready to rock and roll. Then after that, I would really look at I call it your content lab, like your content playground. I have no desire to be on every platform. That stresses me out. I think people don't know this about me. I'm very easily overwhelmed because I'm just a creative person. My team will start asking me details. I'm like, I don't know how it's going to get done. Don't ask me that. Now I have a headache and I need Tylenol. I just know that it's going to happen. So I'm very easily overwhelmed. I don't want to act like I have it. I do not. I like to be in one place, and then that is where my focus is. So my focus, number 1, is my email community. Because no matter what, if everything went away, I could still email you and let you know where I am now, where you can find me. Second to that, very close second to that, is the Copy Chat Facebook group. Those are my core places. Everything else just gets repeated, repurposed, and only if I like it or if I want to. Instagram, I only do because I like it. The minute I stop liking it, that's not making me money. So I'm not worried about LinkedIn. I'm not worried about Twitter. I'm not worried about Pinterest. I'm not worried about YouTube. I have my core content places that I'm at. And I would rather you have that you focus on and you bring people into that. And right there, if you were to do those things, you could be able to then analyze from there and then go, okay, what has to happen next? And the final thing you want to ask yourself is, well, no matter what this is what's the end point? What do you want to bring people into? Is it working with you one-on-one? Is it a group program? Is it this course? So that everything you do can make sure that the journey for that person, that it all makes sense. It's not with a disconnect. Is that helpful, Kathleen?
Very perfect. Very succinct.
Okay.
Nailed it. Okay.
Cool.
So and just so you know, all of those copy assets, the ones that you said need to be done and dusted, or like all need to be done.
Yeah. It's okay. We have, it's like, it's all right. We're all, every time I turn around, I'm like, there's a new piece of copy. I'm like, oh, we got this done, but now this is shit. I got to redo it. Like we're just on this. It's part of it. It's why I think it's so great what you're doing, because copy's always going to be around.
Right.
So it's all right. But I would rather you get one thing done and dusted.
Yeah.
If any of my ladies from the society are here, we just had this conversation 2 weeks ago. So we have this editing part, and it's like, I want you to get something edited that gets sent out to the world and gets tested. Then you can start something else.
Yeah.
Because so much we start, we don't finish it.
Yeah.
And I'd rather like you just got one of those things solid, Kathleen, and got it out into the world.
Great. Perfect.
Figure it out from there.
Love
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Then I appreciate you asking that because it's something I think about all the time. When I started the Copy Chat, people were like, you should have a podcast. You should do YouTube. You ever thought about putting it on LinkedIn? And I was like, whoa, I need an app. I don't want to do any of that. I'm like, I just want to do the Copy Chat. I want to bring people into the society and I want to like go on long walks and like drink red wine. That's all I'm doing. Right. So only this year, now this is the first time, I've taught the society, if you count the Write Your Website workshop, I've taught the society live 6 times. So now we're packaging it into like a self-study now and only now because I know it freaking works. So this is the first time that I'm adding in this next element. Most people are like, oh, I have a course, I have a membership, you can work with me one-on-one. There's this, there's that. I'm like, whoa, I am overwhelmed for you. So I say like the power of 1, grow that, it works. Okay, now what's the next thing that comes? So I think that's important for everybody to remember. Okay, I just see a comment from Peg in the comments saying, question about the creation of your own stage. If we want to serve audiences in 2 different languages and cultures, I suppose we create 2 different events, 1 week after the other. Well, I don't know about this, Peg. Well, why couldn't the summit have a mix of speakers and just it's translated? Like, let's say you had a mix, I'm just making this up, okay? But let's say you had some Greek speakers and you had some English speakers, and then those were just translated for the people. So everybody could kind of come to the summit, and the ones that were in Greek were like translated into English, either in the transcripts, and vice versa for the other. Like that could be so cool, right? I would love that. I would just love to be around something that wasn't just like the same thing that everybody, and if that's like 2 different languages, I think that's really cool. Because if like someone could translate something for me, there's so much to be learned from someone else who speaks a different language, and me could be a perfect mentor for me, that if I could just like, we could, understand each other, it could be awesome. Yeah, go do that summit and then let me know how it goes. Send me a ticket. I want to come do it. Oh yeah, see, Diane says, hi, Diane, by the way. Diane says there's live translations available as well. Yeah, I love, that would be so cool. I love that. Yeah. Okay. What else?
I have a question.
Hi, Sheila. I'm just like looking at the boxes. It's like Hollywood Squares gone like triple time in here. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, how do you feel about video versus copy? So sending out emails that are, or a combination, either sending out video emails or a video blog versus having
Yeah.
copy.
Ooh, I love this question. So let me ask you something. How do you best like to create?
I'm better off just speaking.
Yeah.
And I find that writing is very difficult given my background in IT. I used to do technical writing as part of
Yeah.
that. So writing something that's fun and interesting and, is
Yeah.
really a stretch for me. So, so I found that I'm better when I actually do a video and it just comes out. Now I did think about transcribing it, which I
Yeah.
did try, and that seems to work okay.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm debating about.
Okay, I love this question. So I always want everybody here, when we talk about copy's everywhere, right? Copy's what you write. What I'm doing right now is copy. Like we're speaking wherever we are, like copy's everywhere. So for some of us, we're better like video. People love Clubhouse. I don't really love Clubhouse. I'm happy to talk to you about why. But Clubhouse is like, audio. So everybody like is gonna connect the way that works for them. So Sheila, if doing the video is how you feel comfortable and it's gonna give your audience like that experience of you and it's going to be easier for you to get out, I would love that. Send it as a video. One of the things that you could do is just you could get it transcribed if you wanted, but you could also put captions on the video. So then even if I'm not really in transit anymore, where do I go? But if I'm walking around my neighborhood with a Corona, maybe I don't want people to like hear me. I could, oh my God, Sheila sent, one of her video emails, and then I could just press it. We watch a lot of things on mute and we read the captions. That would be the only thing I might add to it. But I like that because that's also like, that's Sheila's thing. And your audience starts to know you for that. This is how Sheila communicates. And I'm going to be ready to get that. And then it might be eventually, Sheila, you create those, and maybe it would be then bringing in a copywriter or somebody that could help transcribe those and turn those into emails as well that you could repurpose and send out again.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, send some videos. Go for it if that's easy. So I've been doing this Sunday, once a month Sunday series, and I've been wanting to highlight like video, like things I do in the Copy Chat Facebook group. And I was like, wait a second, I'm just going to take a screenshot of me, and then they can just press it, and it'll take them to the video. Why do I need to like rehash what was already in the video? So now that's at the bottom. Like, here's what I've been talking about that y'all were loving this month. Go watch it. Yeah, like make it easy for yourself. That's great. Yep. And I would just always make sure that it has those captions so that people can watch it on, watch it that way, so that you always just want to look through the lens, like, is this accessible for my audience? Is this truly accessible for everybody here? Like, we added in the transcripts this season of the Copy Chat, and people were obsessed. And I'm like, so glad that we did. People loved it. What I learned about a lot of summits is that usually people only include the transcripts for the paid upgrade. And I thought that was pretty gross, because I'm like, well, that's not actually accessible. Then I have to pay for accessibility. So I just paid for you guys to have access to it for free. I just paid for it. But if you have those captions on there, that's going to still be way more accessible for most of your audience, which is great. Yeah. Awesome. What else? Anything else? Which is why I don't love Clubhouse. Yeah, I also feel like Clubhouse is another like click. It's like, let me go and listen to all these people speak on the stage. I'm like, really? Okay. Listen to the Copy Chat. Okay, we're way cooler. And it's diverse, it's inclusive. It's not just a bunch of white people on this panel. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a little bit like, really? This is what we still think like this is okay? Laura says, can you give an example of a message? Oh, okay, like your a core message. Okay, so for me, Laura, and by the way, I'm in the process of revamping our core messaging, which I'm really excited about, using this thing called the kinesthetic trigger. But the way that I think about it is, if somebody asks me, how do I help people in the world? Okay, I would introduce myself and I would say my messaging is, I help coaches and creatives discover what to say and how to say it so they can magnetically attract their dream clients. And I might sometimes add, with personality filled copy that dazzles. It's how you show up and introduce yourself so that people understand what you do and that they follow up with you, Laura, out of curiosity, not out of confusion. So you want to make sure that people are like, ooh, tell me more, not what do you mean by that? So in a great interview to go listen to this to find out even more about this messaging, Laura, is Dr. Michelle's interview from last week, because she has this thing called the 3-word rebellion, which can be a really great way to like actually narrow this down. It doesn't have to be 3 words, by the way. She said this on the interview, but I got messages from people that are like, does it really have to be just 3 words? But like a phrase. So listening to that interview would be a great one to go back and listen to and see what registers for you. Yes. Okay, awesome. Danielle, I don't want to, wait, hold on. Danielle, since what we learned about. Oh, okay, so the Copy Confidence Society. So yeah, so this spring we are going to have our Copy Confidence, like our self-study, which I'm really excited about. One of the things that I'm really, really excited about this is, like I said, it's, and no shade on this, but a lot of times when a course is created, it's like created in a vacuum and then they put it out there. Like I said, I've already taught this baby live 6 times. I know that it works, and I really wanted to create something that I felt was truly like accessible for everyone, depending on their learning style, where they're at in their business. And I've also hired a former teacher who specializes, and she's gone through every inch of this program with me to make sure that it truly feels doable every step of the way. So we're in the process of putting that all together. And so it's going to be coming out in April, and I will make sure that you all know how to get access and, be part of that if that feels. And we'll, we start off with very similar to what we talked about today, the you, talk about core messaging, talk about your website, talk about your lead magnet welcome series, content creation, emails, and then and only then is there a sales module after that. I think very often we're trying to skip to how do I sell more? And it's like, let's get this foundation really laid and feel solid for you. And it's my goal that you can use it again and again and come back to it no matter what stage you are in your business. I'm going to have some pop-ups with me like we're doing here, and copy crushes and a little wine and cheese pairing, not actual wine, but pairing it with different Copy Chat interviews and other resources. So I've really put my life into this thing. My mom's like, when are you having a baby? I'm like, after the Copy Confidence Society self-study is out into the world, I'll think about it. So there's that. That answers it. So I'll make sure that you have that you know about it. And I'll be talking a lot about it over the next few weeks to just really make sure that I'm gathering the right intel to make sure that as we're crafting it, that it's really something that you all want and that's going to be helpful for you. Marlo says, have you ever been bombarded with organizations for a cause? No, and I'm okay if I am. I usually seek out, I think it's funny about organizations. No one's ever asked me. People are always shocked. So when I go and I say, hey, I'm going to raise money, they're always like, oh, okay. I think people are always shocked when I come back and I say, here's a check for $13,000. Like our organization this past summer, Hope for Heather, they were shocked. They were like, people say they're going to raise money, but like, this is true. I'm like, yeah, this is yours to take. So no, I wish people would bombard me. I want to find a way to, help as many people as I can. But for the copy chat, it's usually this fall, I was reading a magazine and Soulfire Farm was featured. And it just hit me in that moment. I'm a sacral manifesting generator after all. And I was like, this is it. I want to be part of this. This is it. This is going to be the charity. And I folded it over to remember it. I reached out to them and that was that. But usually it comes to me in that way. Oh, Peg, I know what you're saying about the Copy Confidence Society. It's changing. This version is a self-study version. The Copy Confidence Society as it is in this moment is also changing. I'll spare you the background of what we're doing, but the self-study I think is going to be perfect for you. Peg is basically what I'm saying. Michelle says, Marisa, here's my problem. I don't really like telling stories and I zone out when listening to stories. What is your advice for people who don't like stories? Obviously, I'm a Monica. Okay, Michelle. So what I would say is maybe your thing is either this. Maybe it's doing more. So asking yourself, what are the things that you, Michelle, obviously you're still here because your name is in blue. Michelle, will you unmute yourself? Hi, Michelle. So what are the things that you like to listen to? So you're saying anytime and you can say yes to this. I'm not like, where'd you go? Oh, honestly. So when I send my emails, you don't like reading those stories?
I'll skim through them. Once in a while, it's like a short story and there's something bolded and I can catch things quickly, but I'm not much of a story person. Listening to them, telling them, I kind of zone out, but I also understand they are hugely important.
Yeah. So two things is, and we didn't talk about this because we didn't really get into copy basics, but I'm actually creating this whole thing for the self-study, which is 52 things to remember in your copy. And one of them is making sure that things are set up to be skimmed. There is so making sure that when you do tell stories, Michelle, no matter how short or how long, it's everybody, that there are words that are bolded. And what I like to do is to read everything that's in bold out loud and go, if I just read these bold parts, do I know what the hell this email or this post or this thing is about? And then I can invite people to go around. So there's that. Number two, what are you drawn to, Michelle? What do you like?
So do you mean my little bucket of things East Coast rap music or the type of books that I like?
No. I mean content that you do find yourself liking of other people's that is sent to you.
I like it when it's short and just kind of, I can't remember what his name is. He does the 75 hard thing, but he's always really clipped kind of in his talking. I'll almost read bullets and such. So I guess I'm just a really big, right to the point bullet person, totally read, that type of thing. So
maybe that
stories.
Yeah. So what I would say is maybe experimenting with a little bit of stories to see a little bit of what we talked about today, see how your audience responds to it, practice with the bold. I'm also somebody who loves bullet points too. So even in that example I showed you, there were bullet points right from the top. So finding if there's certain formatting ways, Michelle, that can really stand out and help you. But also, what might those little short snippets from Michelle be? So my friend Talita, who was in the Write Your Website workshop with me, she sends her audience a haiku every week. Like a haiku, like a little poem, which is just oh my God, I should know this. I was an English major. 575. Am I wrong, guys? Is it 575, 5795, 575? Thank you. And she sends that every week. How cool is that? So your version of that, Michelle, it might not be stories. It might be these little snippets or these little things that are unique to Michelle. So I would encourage you to go on a little journey and find out what that might be.
It's a good idea. Thank you, Marisa.
Yeah, you're welcome. And even being honest, sometimes I like when people are honest and being like, you know what, I'm trying this story thing out. To be honest, I kind of fucking hate stories, but I'm going to try it out and see how it goes. I would love that. Like someone wrote to me the other day, it was like, I love the copy chat, but I have to tell you, I don't believe in this human design stuff. I'm like, great. I love that. I like when people are themselves. And I think if we can do that, we're going to find more ways to do things that we actually like to put out into the world.
Okay. Thank you, Marisa.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a good question, Michelle. Can you talk about kinesthetic triggers? Okay, let me be honest with you guys. I'm gonna have this like little masterclass that's coming up in April. I'm gonna talk all about the kinesthetic trigger thing there. So you guys can come to that, I promise. I'm just looking to see if my product, hi India, if I'm my product, okay, I'm a writer and a singer-songwriter. I don't have anything to sell except for my articles in Medium and my music. Is there anything I should do differently? India, you're still here, obviously, because it's in blue. Will you unmute yourself? Hi, India.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
And what I guess I just mean that there's nothing, I just want to direct people to Medium and then I would get paid
Yep.
through them and stuff. And I just feel like there's nothing tangible that they would walk away
Okay.
with.
I'm going to give you, I don't know if it will directly apply, but I think it might help. So one of my best friends in this world, her name is Marissa, not to be confused with me. There's a Marisa and Marissa. She's a redhead. And when we were super broke in Brooklyn, when we were like 22, we used to share the same bed because we were too broke to even afford our own room. So we lived in the same room in the same bed. We each paid like $250.
Wow.
And we lived in, now fast forward, my really good friend Marissa is a multi-award winning cabaret artist. She's won every award that there is in the cabaret world. And she's been written up by the New York Times. And before COVID, she was traveling all over the country and singing and had standing nights in New York City. Obviously, when COVID hit, she can't perform anymore. So we've really taken it online for her to her Facebook page where her and her pianist, Bill, they've kind of been like quarantined together. And she has a piano in her apartment and they play once a month. They do these shows on Fridays. And she wanted to bring more people to that. So we started her just doing different posts with different angles about showing up for the show. So one could be telling a story about why that particular show. So you could do the same thing for your articles, like why this particular thing matters, why she's gonna, you know, for her Valentine's show, why she's gonna tell the story about her grandpa and all this stuff. Another one could be asking the audience a question. What songs would you like me to perform? Or like getting them involved in it or asking a question. Mm-hmm. Another one is social proof, saying what the New York Times and what people have said about. And if you want the unique chance to have Marissa Mulder in your living room, come on over to my Facebook show. So cycling through these like 3 or 4 kind of different prompts. And she kind of just kept like repeating herself. One time she did a video like, hey, my show's coming up. Here's what it's about. And she sent people to where they would go. And it doubled this last time how many people showed up live and listened.
Right. Oh,
so is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So it might just be like looking at different angles and how that would connect back to the article or your music or what you're doing.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to answer this from Nicole, and then we'll wrap it up here because we've been together for a while, and I could stay all day, but after a while, it's like our brains like we need to just like all go have a glass of wine after talking about coffee for the song. Nicole says, I'm completely brand new to coaching. I don't have any clients at this time, and I don't know when the right time would be to create my Facebook page. When would you suggest I create this? So Nicole, I think the first thing, if it were me, that I would do is that I would go back to that messaging first. And I would really think like, who do I want to serve? Who do I want to help? I would start there. Then I would use my personal Facebook, because this is where we can like, you know, I mean, Facebook is a dumpster. I mean, social media sometimes can be a dumpster fire. And not in the way of like these people who got off and then like went to Parler. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm not saying, you get what I'm saying. But sometimes like Facebook is just a dumpster fire. But this is a way that we can take social media and use it back for good. That our personal page can be a really great way to start to put out and maybe ask people to get on some calls with you, Nicole, not selling anything, but to just verify and talk out that core messaging and see if it resonates with people. So you can get some more of that client language. I would do that first before I looked at creating like a page or another thing. I'd get really clear on what that is first. Then, similar what we were saying to Kathleen, we can then go and look at what are the assets that are then going to support you, or the content, the playground that you need to have. Nicole says, I want to help medical professionals. Okay, great. So I would actually maybe pop that up into your Facebook personal page and say, hey, calling medical professionals that are feeling burned out. I'd love to hop on a call with you, 15 minutes. I want to ask you a few questions. I want to see if what I'm feeling for this, medical is true. And I want to see if there, a few ways that I could benefit this community. Not a sales call, as a thank you for your time. I'd love to. And maybe anybody who says yes, you send them a little like $5 like Starbucks they could redeem, or a little card or a little something to just thank them. And you'll get so much out of just hearing them speak. Now, this is where we want to hear from our ideal client. We want to hear in their words, what are the pain points? What are the benefits? What are they looking for? And I would make sure you have all that. And then you can look and go, okay, now, and then ask them, where do they hang out? Where are they? Where do they go? Are they on Facebook? Maybe they're not. Maybe they're on LinkedIn. Maybe they're somewhere else, and match that to where you want to show up. And then I would create your content place from there. Does that make sense, Nicole? I see you nodding, but I just want to, I love your mic. You know what it reminds me of? Your microphone. Remember when we were kids? I don't know if you're my age, but remember when the Disney Channel was free sometimes?
Yes.
And the woman would be like, you can call and buy it. And she'd be like click clacking and she'd have the thing. It reminds
Yes.
me of me telling my grandma, can we order it? My grandma being like this old Italian woman who was like, absolutely not. I'm not paying for TV, basically. It's not happening.
Right.
But does that make sense?
It totally does. So I have, I've had a couple calls with some of my ideal clients, and I had one last night, and it was so like invigorating, and so like the feeling was just so overwhelming and just so exciting. And I'm like, okay, so what I've had in the back of my head of maybe I should post something on my Facebook, because I do come from the medical field. So I do have a lot of medical professionals on my personal page. But I didn't know if maybe that was the right avenue. Should I separate the two, or what I should do with that? So that, that really totally helps that it's okay to put it on my personal page.
It totally is. It totally is. In fact, I mean, there's certain things that Facebook like has like, rules about, but you aren't even close to, violating those things. So I love to use my personal page as a way to like call forth people. If you go to my personal page, my banner image is an ask to join the Copy Chat Facebook group. So I've positioned my personal page to set me up for my business. Because me personally, otherwise, what am I on Facebook for?
Right.
Like, I didn't talk to you in high school. I'm going to talk to you here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
I remember that you like made fun of me in high school. So we're not going to be pals. Don't like heart myself and be like, oh, cute pics. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, so if I'm not using it to like set myself up for success in my business in some way, like, what am I really here for? So it can be a great way to kind of take that back and use it to just kind of get the ball rolling for yourself a little bit. Because that's likely where your biggest audience reach is going to be. And even if a friend isn't the ideal person, they may know somebody, and it kind of sets that up for you.
Yeah.
In a good way. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
you're
so
welcome.
much.
You're welcome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I thank you for being here, for all of your awesome questions. I felt like everything that everyone submitted was, it was so just thought out, and I loved everything that everyone said. And thank you for being here. We did record, so we will be sending this to everyone to listen into. So if you're like, oh, I want to go back, or I missed something when you were sharing something earlier, it's recorded. It's yours to listen into. Later this week, Hosanna and the team will send it to you. And again, I just want to thank you so much for listening into the Copy Chat, whether this is your first or many of you have been here season after season, and you continue to upgrade and support the charity, which is just so beautiful. Again, we raised over $13,000. And I just want to thank you so much for helping to make that happen. And if you are new around here, what happens, after this in our world is that the Copy Chat Facebook group is my world. It's my content playground. It is always there. Hopefully you're a member inside of there. If you're not, go join and be part of us there. I go live in there on Wednesdays. I'm always popping in there. That's my content playground. And also the email community. I sent out an email about that yesterday with the little emoji, and it said question for you. And it just is kind of, welcoming you into our community if it is your first time. And just knowing that I usually send out email about once a week, sometimes more if I ever am launching anything, or I'll always give the option to opt out of those things. And like we said, when the Copy Confidence Society comes up, I'll make it super, super clear about that. And also if there's colleagues of mine or other things that I want to shout out or highlight. And as promised, if you respond to those emails, I'm the person that responds back to you. So I encourage you to do so and be part of our community. And I just, yeah, again, just thank you so much for being here and taking this time to work on your copy and your business and audience and having intentional audience growth as well. Diana, my shirt says motorcycles are dangerous. There was a coffee shop that sadly closed last year called Brother Moto in Atlanta. It was a motorcycle repair. It was a half motorcycle repair shop, half coffee shop. I felt like it was the perfect blend of me and my husband. And they had this little shop in it. And this is like, if you live in Atlanta, people know motorcycles are dangerous, was like Brother Moto's thing. I also have another one, but that's what it says. So again, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to having you listening into other seasons and other things that we do inside of the Copy Chat community. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, night. I know we're tuning in from everywhere, and I'll see you in email, or I'll see you inside of the Facebook group. Okay. Bye everyone. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.